All right, so here we're going to go into our subwoofer installation. So this is the hardware that comes with the subwoofer. You get your port tube, which is this piece right here. One thing to note, do not shorten it. It's part of the tuning. The length of it is part of the tuning, so you got to make sure it's you keep it that way. This clamp right here is the clamp that clamps to the mud ring onto your tube. This clamp here, the skinny clamp, which is this one here, clamps the tube to the box. These are your isolation pieces between the brackets and the subwoofer. You actually use these between the brackets and the wood, the joists. Then of course this is your screws to screw your brackets into the actual subwoofer box. These are your 4 brackets that you use to install the woofer onto the joists. One of the things unique about the SUB1, our minimal appearance subwoofer, is that we actually have 2 port openings. There's one on the top of the woofer and then also one on the side with this little plate we can pop off. So when you're trying to determine where to mount this in the ceiling or the floor joist or however you're gonna put it into your room, these port locations are critical so that you can move them based on where your port itself will actually be installed. All right, so now what we have is our port tube, and we're going to install this onto the woofer with our single clamp, which is this piece right here. So basically you just slide that clamp right over. The subwoofer tube just slides right on, the port tube just slides right onto the woofer. And then you just simply take your screw gun or your T-nut wrench and tighten up this one little nut right here. That will give us our clamp. All right, so now you can see we have our clamp clamped on here. She's nice and tight, not gonna go anywhere. So now we're gonna get our brackets and we're gonna mount them to the actual box here. So these brackets, of course, can be varied depending on where the woofer is actually gonna be installed on the joists. So for this application, we're gonna put them at 16 inches on center from here to the second piece, which will be up here. And we're gonna put our 2 screws into each one of these, and then we'll have another screw that we'll use to screw this into the actual joist. All right, so here we've got our subwoofer box mounted to the joists, and you can see we've got our 2 brackets right here. We've got the little rubber isolation pieces between the bracket and the actual subwoofer. So now we're going to take our gypsum board, which we've already measured up to where it's supposed to be on this wall, and line it up and get it installed. All right, so now we've got our gypsum panel. This is basically recording from the rear of the joist, so you can see what it looks like from behind. So this is our mud ring that's in the true fig panel right here. And here's our double clamp. So now as you see, we have our rubber ring around both the mud ring and the port tube. And we've got our double clamp. We'll slide that right onto there. Then we're gonna tighten up these 2 screws. Now, as you see, we have our double clamp on here. She's tightened down. It's nice and tight, so we don't have to worry about that ever coming loose on there. And we are now complete with our port, sub, and gypsum installation. One thing you're going to want to remember is that that little half moon looking thing that we took out for the other installations, you leave that in for the subwoofer installation. That is what's going to hold your grill. That's that little ring right there. It's got the 3 magnetic screws on it, used to hold your paint ring, your mud ring, and also your grill in place. So just leave that in the gypsum panel and in the installation the entire time. You do not have to remove it. Now we have our subwoofer mounted. We have our gypsum panel mounted, our TrueFake panel, and we are ready to do our mudding and everything else on the front side. So this is looking at it from basically from the attic, I guess is where you would be looking at this from the back side.